That's what we're battling against. So there was one more case from, let's go back to Alexander the Great. He said, who came to him next? The Egyptians. They said, Jewish people owe us money. It says in the book of Shmos that the Jews took all the gold and silver from the land of Egypt. We want our money back. Can you imagine? That's a lot of money. They come to the International Court of Alexander the Great and demand their money back. So again, Gvia ben Sisa gets permission from the rabbis, go and represent us there. And he said, well, what's your proof? Your proof is from Shemos, from Exodus? Okay. Now, we Jews were enslaved by you, and there were about 600,000 men above the age of 20, and you had us for 430 years. Now, we know it was really only 210, but the Torah calls it, but he's using their own medicine against them, because the Torah, in its written sense, says 430, and as far as they're concerned, that's the truth, right? The only truth is what's actually written. Forget what Chazal teach. Okay, so according to you, we were there for... So give us the wages of 600,000 working men for 430 years. That's going to be a lot more money than what you're saying. And of course, they all run away. Because Alexander the Great was serious. And he says, and if you lose your case, you're going to forfeit whatever you have. Now, there was one final contest here, and that's our good friends, the Ishmaelites. Now, the Ishmaelites came and said, listen, we're sons of Avram Avinu, right? The Torah says that the inheritance of the land of Israel belongs to whom? Avram Avinu and his children. We're children, give us half of Eretz Yisrael. Interesting, they don't ask for all of Eretz Yisrael, they ask for half. They ask for half of Jerusalem, not all of Jerusalem. Question is which half? Half the baby, exactly, half the baby. So, what happened now? So how do we get rid of them? So he's brilliant. He says, Avram Avinu, imagine Gvia ben Sisa, he's like, the Ben Brafman of the, Mr. Ben Brafman, he was a great criminal attorney back in the Five Towns. Okay, so he says, listen, you're claiming that the sons of Abraham deserve a portion of Eretz Yisrael, but you're not the only son of Hagar, are you, Mr. Yishmaelim? No, there were others. What happened to them? Well, let's look in the Torah. What does it say that Avram did to them? He gave them what? A shem tuma. He gave them some, we'll see in a second what that means, and he sent them away from Yitzchak. So guess what? We see that there was actually a legal settlement of the estate prior to Avram's passing, so you have no legal claim. We're using the Torah itself to prove that you have no claim on Eretz Yisrael. And ultimately, that is our only claim against our friends, the Ishmaelim, our cousins, is the claim of Torah itself. And anything else will fall short. So that was the court that goes all the way back to Alexander the Great. Now, if we want to understand Yaakov's descent into Mitzrayim, it's exactly this problem. Yaakov going down to Mitzrayim is very concerned that the ore of Torah will be swallowed alive and will never leave, ever. What does he do to circumvent that? Who does he send down ahead of him? And to do what? Yehuda Shalach Lefanav, where? Goshen. Goshen, I mentioned the letters stand for Nes Gadol Haya Sham. He says, Lahoris Lefanov, says Rashi, to make a base HaTalmud, to set up a center of Torah learning. And he says, he sends him to Yosef, saying, Yosef, if we don't have this Beit HaTalmud, we will not survive in the Galus. We will not survive. That was all Yaakov's doing. But I want to go back to my stories now. So, if the 8th, 9th, and 10th day of Teves represent the mark of a very, very challenging period in the Jewish calendar year, but also in Jewish history, and that is, we have to keep the light of Emunah in what particular point? In Hashkacha Pratis, and what? Which means a Mahalach Nisi. Now everybody knows the Ramban. The Ramban says the world doesn't only operate with miracles. The world operates with lots of what? Small miracles. Hashgacha pratis is a small miracle. Okay? A miracle nonetheless. And in reality, there really is no teva, because Hashem is the one who declared and created the system of supervision and providence. But our battle in the world, the Jews' battle at the time of the darkest moment, is to remember that Hashem's hand is behind us and that nisim happen every day, even if they're small miracles. You must recognize them as miracles. And part of the job of a Jew, and one of the things you need to do every day, is what? Lahalel ula hobabeach ula hodot. That's what Yehuda was great at. He said, Lahodot, I thank you, Hashem, because I see your hand in my life. When a person doesn't see Hashem's hand in their life at that moment, it's very dark. It's the chfinster. It's very dark. They lose hope. They lose connection. Right? They enter a state of yush, darkness. And I saw this actually in the name of the Piaseczner Rabbi. He said that emunah in Hashem is not blind faith. We don't believe in blind faith. He says, you know what we believe in? We believe that there's a small part, there's a little pach shemen called my neshama, which is a chelek elokar mimal, that the Jewish soul contains an innate part of the Or Hashem. Every Jew has a divine spark of tremendous Or. And when you see it, because you feel it activated, you feel some sort of something going on that's just beyond the day-to-day explainable nature, that's when your soul is a little bit alive, and that's when you start having some Or in your life. And that's why it's an obligation for Jew, lahalel ulahodos. That's why we're called Jews. We're not called Hebrews anymore. We're not called anything else. We're called Yehudim. Because what are we? We are that lone voice in history, that lone voice that says, no, there is hashgacha pratis, and there are miracles in nisim. Okay.
And we thank Hashem.
And therefore, we thank Hashem for his kindness in intervening in our lives. Okay. So, I'll first tell a story about my Ayala, whose birthday is the 9th of Tevet. So my daughter Ayala Kanahara is 21, just turned 21 yesterday. Now, at the time of her birth, I was a rabbi at Young Israel Oceanside, and the first wife of Leah Shalom, Elizabeth Shushat, her father should have refuah shleima b'toch shacholi Yisrael, and of course we learned Lalios Nishmas, those incredible karbonos that we saw in this week, which were beyond belief. That little baby, who, whatever that neshama was just a Hanukkah light, and those two boys who were killed were both named what? Yosef. And they were fighting in which brigade? The Netzach Yehuda brigade. And where were they killed? In Binyamin. You go draw your own conclusions. It's all the story of the unity of the Jewish people and the travails around it. That every Jew is important and no Jew should be abandoned wherever they live and whatever they believe or don't believe. This is the big challenge of today. We don't have that emunah that each and every Jew is a chelek elokar mimal, and you can't sacrifice certain Jews or certain portions of Eretz Yisrael. And this has been a horrible, horrific mistake that's been going on now for how many years? At least 30 years, 40 years. And it's a tragic error. The Lubavitch Rebbe said, my mother is a Lubavitch, he said that the Jews will create their biggest problems in trying to give away land and trying to make peace with the Ishmaelim. And that all these are self-manufactured problems, and they're all based on the same thing, a lack of emunah in Hashem. A lack of emunah and a lack of thanks that we made it this far, and that we'll have the emunah to go forward. And I have to say this, I really believe that even the most secular of the founding fathers of Israel had an immense faith in the Jewish people and their destiny and even in Hashem that we don't see today. They had a faith. They had a faith. give me a shiur. I'll be done in about 15 minutes, okay? I was married during Israel Oceanside. We went there in the summer of '95, and we're there for a few years. We're working hard with the community, doing everything that we possibly could to make it a great place, which it is, Baruch Hashem. And but due to health reasons, Elizabeth and I at the time could not pursue a regular course of. She had already contracted Yana Machla, and little known to me, would end up passing from it in 1999. She contracted it in '96, just when we got there. But in the meantime, we wanted to build our family. So it was Simchas Torah, I think 1997, and I had organized the entire community of Oceanside, Forum Conservative, everybody Jewish, came out in front of our shul, which was unprecedented, and we had a Simchas Torah gathering, first of its history. And it was a carryover from Manhattan days, where I used to make Simchas Torah gatherings out in the street, and I said, let's do it here. It was a very lichtige moment, and soon thereafter, we got a call from somebody that there was a baby in Israel, a Jewish baby in Israel, that was maybe available for adoption. And we were very excited, and I ended up taking a group of people from Young Israel of Oceanside here to learn and study December of '99. And unfortunately, the whole thing fell apart. The whole thing fell apart. And we were in Hebron. I was standing on, the circles that that they put in the building that show the exact point of everything, because the Herod followed the Roman architecture, that everything was marked off perfectly. I was standing right above Avram Avinu, right above where he's buried, literally. And then we get a phone call saying, no, it didn't work out. And it didn't work out. So we were very disappointed, needless to say. But we had a group and so on. After that, I had a couple of days, and we were kind of going around the rainy streets of Yerushalayim, very disappointed, wanting, not knowing what's going on, trying different things. I remember going to the kotel, and sometimes you reach a point where you're just not davening for anything anymore. You just say, Hashem, I want a hug. All I want is just give me a hug. You know what I mean? Like, forget all the, I want to have this, and we want this Yeshua, we want this miracle, we want this nace to happen. Just, nace, no nace. I just need a hug. And I remember burying my head in the kotel there and just kind of like staying there. And it was a really different moment for me. And then what happened was, about an hour or two later, right when I was getting ready to go on the plane, go back to America, I got a phone call from my secretary saying, somebody called about a Jewish baby. My Rabbi Rapam said you can only take a Jewish baby. That was his instructions to me. That was his psak. And it's like finding a needle in a haystack would make it easy to find a Jewish baby, a healthy Jewish baby to adopt, almost impossible. And we got a call, and he says, you have to be in 1 week out in California, Northern California, to meet the birth mother. So that was December 18th of 1999. December the 25th, darkest day of the year, darkest before the dawn. We were out in California, met the birth mother, a nice Jewish girl from New York who got into trouble or something like that. Didn't want to have her baby, was looking for a nice family. And we met her, it went well. And Ayala was born on January 7th, which was the 9th day of Tevet. I was on a plane on the 9th day of Tevet out to California, and we ended up bringing her home via Texas a few days later to a big reception at Young Israel. And the turnaround from that moment, of that very dark, disappointed moment, disappointment upon disappointment, and then the phone call was already on my machine. So you have to see the Yad Hashem. And anybody who knows Ayala knows that she's just extraordinary, very, very special girl. And she loves Israel, and she's just very inspiring kid, great kid, and Mr. Shem has a great future here. Now, that's my first Tevet story. I got another Tevet story, and we'll end with that. Subsequently, and it was still in Oceanside, Baruch Hashem, I met my wonderful wife, Connie, and we got married while I was still out there in Oceanside. And Connie brought 2 boys into the marriage, one of whom's chasana will be Thursday night. The other one is married and dropped my mother-in-law off here. He's visiting from New York. And together with Ayala, we blended our family, but we wanted to go further. We had the hers, the his, and we wanted the ours. And at that point, we had made a decision that our family needed a different venue to blend and to grow. And we decided to leave Oceanside and relocate to Far Rockaway, where the kids were all in yeshiva, and where we could just quietly start a new episode of our life. And because I was a free bird, I was able to go to Uman that Rosh Hashanah for the first time in my life, something I really wanted to do, but I could never do due to work obligations. And then subsequently, a little bit later in that year, I met Rabbi Reuben, the Sulitzer Rebbe of Far Rockaway, who was a great tzaddik, who is a scion of the Rebbe Elimelech dynasty. And he said to me, he knew me as a rabbi, he said, Yungaman, what are you doing here? What's going on? I said, yeah. Started talking. He asked me about the family. He said, we'd like to have more children. He says, if nothing happens between now and Rebbe Elimelech's yahrzeit, get on a plane and go to Rebbe Elimelech of Lizhensk's kever in Lizhensk, Poland. I said, okay. And he named me two other families in the community that he had given this advice to, and they both ended up having babies. You know who I'm talking about. I'll mention later. The Lightman family being one of them. Okay. So I consulted, and it turns out that it was recommended that I go on the second month, which was this, because it was like this year, Adar Rishon, Adar Sheni, and the yahrzeit is in Adar. So it's a week after Purim, by the way. It's a week after Purim, 21st of Adar. So I go, Adar Sheni. We'll go Adar Sheni, which was a Friday, which means I had to be in Poland over Shabbos. I ended up going with a group of about 300 Hasidim and me. And we got on, we got our tickets, and the Hasidim don't like to go to one kever. If they're going to go to a kever, they want to go to about 100. You're on the bus, off the bus, on the bus, off the bus. You don't sleep. You go on and off, on and off, on and off. So we were really tired. I found one other Jew there who was like a kippah sruga guy, Israeli, and we were with a Satmar guy who was very clever, and he goes, listen, I have a plan. Instead of going all night on these buses and arriving in Lizhensk at 4 o'clock in the morning, completely exhausted from 2 days of travel, our hotel is paid for. Let's go to the hotel, have a good night's sleep, and get up Friday morning, and we'll go daven. And he flagged down somebody from a car that was riding alongside the Hasidic bus. Next thing we know, we're in a hotel in Reisha, Poland, and we rested, we relaxed, we got up refreshed. When they were arriving back from Lizhensk, we took a car, just me and this other gentleman, who turns out to be a 9th generation descendant of the Rebbe Elimelech, who never went before, so his family sent him. And we get in the... No, this fellow Yoeli from Satmar gave us the advice to go to the hotel. we spent the night discussing educational reform. I'll never forget this guy. He said to me, when you, in his Yiddish accent, English Yiddish accent, he said, when you have problems with kids and parents, because you got to give to get. You got to give to get. That was his thing. He says, you want kids to do stuff? You can't just yell at them and say, do this. Got to give them something that they want, a toy, a game, a tchotchke, a treat, a trip, or whatever it is. Anyway, very wise advice.
He went with you also?
He took us to the hotel. He flagged down one of his rabbis. We got into a car. We ran ahead to the hotel. We got a night's sleep. We get up. We take a cab, just the two of us. We go, we say the whole book of Tehillim. The whole book of Tehillim. My wife sent me our wedding invitation. I threw it in. They have a big bin over there where it's gated. It's gated. You can't go right in. But anyway, I was able to get in. Okay. So we say the Tehillim, we daven, and then come back to the hotel. It's Erev Shabbos. And they are performing a bris milah on 2 boys, 14-year-old boys, who were brought in from Belarus by Reb Moshe Fima. He's an incredible rabbi. I think he was just featured in Mishpacha not long ago, actually. He does kiruv on these kids who don't have Jewish fathers, drug addicts. He pulls little neshamas of light, and he makes them into B'nai Torah. He takes them as his own children, raises them, teaches them Torah, makes them shidduchim, etc. So he brought his whole yeshiva there to fundraise, and they made 2 bris, and they were looking for people to pay for the bris. So I said to the guy, you know what? I'll pay for the bris. I'll pay for a bris. He says, they're going to bid it out. I said, I'm going to bid it out. It would cost me a lot of money, Baruch Hashem. But I won the bid. So I'm the sandik. Now, what do you do with a kid who's 14-year-old? You know what I mean? It was an operating table. They set up an operating table in the hotel. They have this famous Moel Fisher, who, by the way, was involved in the whole thing with the Metzitza B'Peh whole thing. He was right in the center of that whole, there was a whole controversy about, let's not go into it. And he literally had surgical equipment, and I held the boy under his head. And I made the bracha for him. He didn't have a Jewish father. When I got into my head, I should call my wife, Hani, and she could say Amen to my bracha. And thank God to Helfin, I had a cell phone, and I called home. Not only was she home, but Mandy, who just dropped off my mother, was home, who wasn't exactly thrilled with the idea of more kids coming, taking more attention away from his mom. It was bad enough that I was there and Ayala was there. But he said Amen to the bracha too. And come home. And 9 months later, Elimelech was born. Now the boy that I was sandik for took the name Elimelech because it was the yortzeit of Elimelech that he had his bris. Okay? Now the man I traveled with was also davening for his daughter to have a child because she didn't have any children. A year later, on the anniversary of the yortzeit, I have my young bar mitzvah boy now, this week bar mitzvah boy, and I decided I'm going to make a sudas hodah, right? Hodah, you have hodah on the nes, on hashgacha pratis, on the belief that tefillah can actually bring miracles, can change the natural order. That's the whole belief, right? So I called up my friend and I said, you know what? Come to my house, we're making a suda. He goes, I'm very busy. He goes, what are you busy with? I'm making a bris for my grandson tomorrow. I go, what? Do you realize what you just said? You're planning a bris for this daughter that didn't have children, and the bris is going to come out on the yort side of Rabbi Elimelech that you went a year ago to daven, and you're a descendant. He almost dropped the phone, and he says, I'm coming to your house tonight. And he came to my house, and he gave me a little silver kos as a gift. And to this day, my little Elimelech makes kiddush on that kos every single night. P.S., this girl, his daughter went on to have about 4 or 5 boys year after year after year after year. I think they're up to 5 or 6 boys at this point, starting from there. About the end of the story. We followed this Elimelech. His name was Visa Gargusha. Visa Gargusha, that was his name. A little blonde kid, like a doll. Beautiful. The kid that I was sandik for. Long, dirty blonde hair, beautiful child. He's in Belarus with Rabbi Fima. One day I hear that he got to Yerushalayim and he's learning here. And then I heard, after we made Aliyah, that he had found a shidduch and he's getting married. And the wedding is going to be in Yerushalayim. And I was invited to the wedding. And I got a bracha under his chuppah. And I happen to know that they have at least 1, 2 kids at this point. And that chuppah was a chuppah, I want to tell you, the Chassidish Rebbes were there, because that's the ones who are involved in that Kiruv program, Stolen and so on, Rabbi Dishon. And so the story goes on. So Lahal Lahodos. And of course, Elimelech's birthday, Yud Gimel Teves. And that's why we're celebrating now. So those are my Tevet stories. And the Chiddush is, it's darkest before the dawn, but never, ever, ever stop. Lahala lahodos, and Hashem should bring miracles and protection for all of Klal Yisrael. Amen. Thank you. Okay? Chaim l'chaim. And we look forward to seeing you on Shabbos.